That would help. There we go. Now you can hear me. Hello.
Good morning.
I thought I had everything under control there, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, hang on, you can't hear me because I'm on mute.
It's because you're drinking tea.
The tea.
And not coffee.
So I have an ex-girlfriend who said, there is nothing so bad in the world that it cannot be solved by a lovely, lovely cup of tea. And I still maintain that she's absolutely correct. And there was another thing. She says, not just a lovely, lovely cup of tea. So basically, and I think this is good advice for anyone who's going through some shit at the moment. Maybe your life's just not working out the way you wanted it to. You're looking at your finances or your health or your relationships or whatever it is. And you're thinking, oh, this is not what I wanted. Just do one of these two things. Have a lovely, lovely cup of tea. You'll feel much better, right? Guaranteed. It works for me.
It worked for my grandmother too.
There we go. See, Boererat, the old, that's the stuff. And then the other one is, Phumi, you have a lovely bath. Now, I know bathing in this country is expensive because water, blah, blah, blah. People don't usually bath if they can shower, especially men.
But also, whose geyser has enough electricity to actually heat up enough to be able to fill a bath?
Yeah, that's true. Because, I mean, the reason I'm here in studio now is because I woke up at 3:30 a.m., which was horrible. And I realized, like, there was some power failure in my area, not just load shedding. So the batteries were all drained. And I woke up, you know, when you wake up at 3:30 and you're like, what am I going to do now? And I just made a call, like, in my head. I was like, no, I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to drive through to the office and do the show from here and get on with it. Start my day extra early. So, I mean, I've already been awake since,
halfway through the morning.
2.5 hours ago. Yeah. So I'm up and at 'em this morning.
You're already halfway through the morning.
Damn right.
But you know, this is what I miss about the lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Not being tethered to a clock.
Yes.
Because with the lockdowns, you could wake up, because as you know, my sleep patterns are a mess. Also, you have up at 1 and now you're reading, and then
why is your microphone gating like this?
I don't even know what gating means.
I do. I'm going to sort this out. Hang on. What the hell's going on here?
So,
just keep talking to me. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out why you.
No, but so you could.
What's going on there?
Here to help.
Is there
Ryan to save the day?
Plugged into the wrong place? What the hell's going on there?
But Ryan's here to help. And then you could read because you didn't have anywhere to go. And then you could fall back asleep and not feel like you're going to run out of time.
Well, those were the days of lockdown, and those are over. Thank God. I mean, listen. We don't want to go back and wind the clock back and all that stuff. But there's lots of other good shit to talk about this morning.
But you know, just on the good old days of lockdown, last week when everybody was here for the recording with the uncancelled recording, I met Hermine, and she reminded me that before lockdown happened, I had put out a call and said to everyone, if you want to come for a Soweto experience.
Yes.
And then lockdown happened and all of that. And I had even forgotten about that.
But she reminded you.
So she reminded me because she still wants to go. So I did say, I'll say today on the show, I'll put it out to say, if you are interested, but I think I can only take like 5 people.
I've been on this trip with you. This is a worthwhile excursion. I'll tell you something. This is once in a lifetime.
My Soweto. This is not like a Soweto tour. Don't expect like a Soweto tour. This is
in
my
a lifetime
Soweto.
with Phumi Mashiko.
So I did, and so they can send an email. Send an email. Hermine is definitely on.
Good.
And 4 more people, and then we'll do a.
Okay, so it's really happening.
It's really happening.
So all right,
there
we go.
And we'll send an email to our contact email.
Good idea.
And then I'll get hold of everybody, and we'll make it happen.
Well, here she is in the comments. She says, "Yeah, I'd love to go, Phumi." So, all right, it's contact@cliffcentral.com. First come, first serve. If you're a creep or a weirdo, we're not going to let you in the car with Phumi. But there we go.
Do you see this, Hermine? Unlike a lot of politicians, I keep my
You
promise.
keep your promises. Oh, that's a good thing. All right, so people are very excited because today on the Burning Platform,
Send an email to who? Somebody asks. What's the contact email?
Contact
at cliffcentral.com.
I did say it, you idiots.
Hi, man.
Say it again. Guess who we've got on the show later on? Glynnis Breytenbach. Yes, the most fearsome woman in Parliament, and someone who is all the rage at the moment after last week's parliamentary hearings into the Thabo Bester situation. She's the DA's shadow minister for justice, and she is takes no prisoners kind of person. So she'll be our guest after 7. I'm a little bit intimidated, even though I've met Glynnis before. So we'll see how that goes. All right.
But we have nothing to be scared of.
No.
You know why?
We're not
because
crooks.
we've not lied.
That's true. Oh, she's like a heat-seeking missile for lies.
She is.
And speaking of lies, Phumi told me the most amazing story just now about a woman who on Instagram posted this video about her outfit.
I must find it.
Please. I mean, so this woman, according to Phumi, she's wearing Cartier jewelry. She's got this dress on that's worth gazillions. She's got.
It's not a dress. So she's wearing She's wearing jeans, a t-shirt, and a jacket. But so she runs through her entire outfit.
It costs a fortune.
And a Birkin bag. I mean, a bottom of the range Birkin bag costs like $45,000.
Jesus.
And
for a bag. What is this bag? Is this Mary Poppins' bag that you pull a ladder out of? A bag.
Baby, believe. Bottom of the range.
Need to see what this looks like. A Birkin bag. Okay. Birkin bag price. This is the first thing that comes up on Google. Gee, you weren't kidding. 699,000 Rand and 28 cents. I love the way there's a 28 cents at the end of it.
Every cent counts.
My God, you've got to be kidding me. What makes this so expensive? I'm looking at it now. I don't see. This is $110,000 bag. I got to show you this because you're not going to believe it. $110,000 for a handbag. Okay? I'm going to show you a picture of this now. You're going to. I'm just blown away. Ryan was busy telling us about an energy drink that's for sale. That's like
Prime.
Yeah.
You've got to be parent Twitter to understand what this is all about.
$800 for a can, 500 ml can of energy drink, and I thought that was bad. But this, ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Look at that. That bag that you're seeing on the screen now will sell for, and I'm going to just post a screenshot of the price because you're not going to believe it. So it's Hermes. But it is a small Kelly two-way handbag. They call it a Birkin. Okay, so here it is. I mean, this is just the most extraordinary waste of money I could ever imagine. I'm sure there are women in the world who are right now going, no, but you don't understand.
You absolutely don't understand. In the Upper East Side,
look here,
is
$110,000. You have got to be kidding me. And by the way, they'll deliver until the 3rd of May. You can put it on your wish list too, ladies.
Yeah, there estimated delivery date.
$110,887, not rands. So that thing would cost you 1.9 million rand. Am I right?
Absolutely. And the one she's carrying, I don't know. I will.
Wow.
I think when we have our 3-minute break, I'll have to find her. But my God, this woman is, and she runs through it. I don't know where she is. She runs through. These are the shoes. This is this t-shirt. This is this jacket. These jeans.
I bet you could buy that Fong Kong thing. I bet
of course you can.
You could buy that for like $60 at the Chinese.
You can get a really good Chinese knockoff.
Yeah.
Which I suspect there are many South African celebrities because there's they're probably about 4 that I can think of that have been spotted with a
God,
Birkin
here I
bag.
was telling people the best thing you can do is a lovely, lovely cup of tea. Meanwhile, there's a bag for $110,000. You've got to be kidding me. Arbot says it looks like 150 Rand Boxburg flea market special.
But if you know, you know.
Lovely Lady Lee says it looks like some bag from Truworths, Joe.
No, the Truworths bag wants to look like that.
Well, apparently Sandile says that Birkin bags grow in value. You can buy to sell later. My God, that's just unbelievable. Ricky says it's madness. For a black bag, I get a black bag free from the municipality. All right, so tell me about this woman.
So she posts this. I don't think it's her TikTok that she posted, but somebody then took the TikTok and posted it on Twitter. And then South African Twitter detectives went, who the hell is this woman? Because somebody then, people are rich. There are people like, do you know how much it is to be walking around like that? Oh, I mean, her entire outfit, the bag alone, as you can see.
So they worked out how much did she have on?
About 1 million.
For one outfit for one day.
About 1 million Rand is what she had on. That's her drip.
I cannot imagine. If you said to me, here's 1 million Rand budget, but you've got to buy one day's out, I wouldn't know what to buy.
Yeah, no.
As a guy, it's impossible.
Like, it is not.
I'm sure as a girl, you could find jewelry.
I'm sure if you asked, I'm quite certain you could ask some of our politicians.
You think that those horrible shiny suits of theirs cost a lot of money?
The shoes.
The ones that look like you bought them off the peg and then had them altered by.
Did we not see our electricity minister be launched into this is who he is with his, how much was his watch?
What was it, a Patek Philippe or something?
Yeah. And how much was that?
That motherfucker is the reason I'm here early this morning.
Anyway. So I don't think. But then Twitter detectives went in on who is this woman.
Yeah, because she's not a well-known person, right? She's not some sort of
definitely. So you won't recognize her if you don't know.
So who does she turn out to be? Because this is what I do love. I mean, Twitter's full of bitter and resentful people, but occasionally those bitter and resentful people do some good groundwork. And that's what they did this time.
It's why we're going to be talking to advocate Glynnis Breytenbach, because the Twitter detectives would not let it lie.
So who is this this idiot person who's splurging their wealth in a country where we have no money?
She is the wife of a former Northern Cape premier.
Oh. And the shittiest province in South Africa with the least money. And she's wearing $1 million for an outfit for a day.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
Oh my God.
Diamond smuggling. Backdrop.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Diamond smuggling. Allegations of and this is not like diamond smuggling from 2004. This is like 1988 levels of. So this man has
been on the take. He's been stealing since 1988. And the only way we found out, because our police and our detectives are so useless, the only way we found out is because the wife is so desperate for attention and love that she posts pictures of how she splurges all this money, that's ill-gotten gains. But I mean, I hope
you wonder,
are they going after them now?
I hope there's like a SARS audit of some sort.
Should ask Glynnis to get on it.
Ask Glynnis to get on it. But I'm just like, and this is not, I mean, for all intents, they have gotten away with it, right? Because here we are. And this was, the article that somebody dug up is from 1989, I think. And another one from 1998 from the Mail and Guardian. And as I'm reading through all of this stuff, I'm thinking to myself, OMG. There is so much going on in this country that if it had not been for this moment of just flexing on the internets, we would never have known. She would just be driving around. And as you know, I've been going on about the gold mafia documentary, right?
Right. You got me to watch it.
And?
Nah, listen, I don't like these crooked things. I knew it was interesting. But I hate seeing this stuff, Phumi. It just upsets me that, that I, first of all, am stuck in this stupid world of having, I don't know, basic principles. Like, it's okay for some people to steal. It's not okay for me. I'm like, why was I born with this bullshit? Because I would be very happy to have that money. That's the first part. But then I get over that and I start thinking, what kind of a world do we live in? It's like when I read Mandy Wiener's book. That was like a watershed for me. That
Which one? The
Killing
first
Kebble.
one.
And it upset me so much because I used to go out in Joburg all the time.
To all those clubs.
To all those places. And then I suddenly realized, oh my God, I mean, I'm fraternizing, I'm socializing in areas where these absolute scum of the earth human turds are like within arm's length of where I am. It just ruined the whole thing for me. I don't want to go out anymore. Don't want to meet people. I'm nervous and terrified of 3/4 of the things that happen in this country because it's suddenly, it's close to home. I don't know. I don't need to. So this gold mafia thing, you've really upset me.
That Killing Kebble, just like gold mafia, it's when you see the streets of Joburg, when you see the malls. I mean, I go and buy my acha at the Oriental Plaza. I make a special trip to go buy acha. Just a small ad break. It's amazing acha.
No, I can well believe it.
But now when I drive there, I see that gold mafia like shot. I'm like, it's all right here. And then it freaks me out because then I'm just like, do I want to be here? Is today the day that somebody is like in a shootout? It's the same reason I don't go to like Bedford View. Today the day that there's going to be a shootout.
I thought Bedford View, like I used to go and play at the one place there, and I was like, oh, good. As a DJ, I would pitch up with, hey, everybody, let's have some fun. Meanwhile, who knows what kind of scum and villainy was going on in the background. It's just unreal to me how desperate. Like if you had diamond smuggling level money, that's hundreds of millions of rands, okay? That you've embezzled over years. You said from like 1988.
1988.
So this woman has access to turn on the tap and she can have anything she wants. Anything. Right?
And what she wants is our attention.
But that's the thing. Now, it just shows you like poverty is not about how much you have or you don't have. Poverty is in your head. This woman is impoverished in her mind. What she really wants is the attention of all of us. She loves right now, what's giving her a major high is people are talking about it. She realizes she's fucked up badly.
Do you think she realizes? I don't think she realizes.
Do you think she's that stupid? Probably. Maybe.
I don't think she realizes.
I mean, maybe she is. Anyway, it's just wild to me that the one thing that these people crave, all of these guys who are stealing money left, right, and center all over the world, not just here in South Africa, the one thing they crave is fame and notoriety and attention. And
listen, Baba.
It's just unbelievable.
Listen, Baba. It is, for me, that blows my mind. On one side, I am so glad that I'm unaware of it, right? So when I read Mandy Wiener's book, when I watched Gold Mafia, you see all these places, and I'm so glad that I actually am unaware of it. It may be happening next to me.
I would prefer,
but I'm okay with that. I don't want to.
I don't want you to tell me about Gold Mafia or things like ever again.
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to.
Ever again? No, you keep it to yourself. You and whoever's in the audience that's seen it, you guys go ahead, but leave me out of it. So Carl says Bedford View, and this is a good point, is still lekker. Lots of very attractive Greek and Portuguese women. I will agree. He does say they don't age well, so go now. He's absolutely... Carl, you could not be more right. And you say that as Carl dos Santos, so you're obviously Portuguese. You know what you're
something.
You know what you're talking about. I'll tell you, there are very few things in the world that are as beautiful as a young Mediterranean girl. Portuguese, Greek, Spanish, Italian, Southern French, Croatian, gorgeous. Even Lebanese girls are gorgeous too. But they reach a point where, I don't know, they start wearing black. They put a headscarf on, they grow a fucking beard, and then it's overs, cadovers. So I don't know what happens there, but there we go. Producer Ryan calls it Bedford View.
By which
Wow.
time they've already snagged their husband. So it's okay.
Congo Chris, alive and well with all the news this morning. Don't know if anyone heard, but it looks like Zelensky embezzled billions of dollars in military aid. Oh, I would never have guessed that might happen.
I saw that. Something like 400 million.
You know, I had JJ Cornish on Tuesday, and we were talking about how
Sudan.
we were talking Sudan, but we were also talking about generally how, like, the Wagner Group is at work in the Central African Republic, the Congo, Senegal, all over the place. And we were talking about what instability has been caused by, the French being thrown out in like West Africa, and now the Russians coming in. And of course, the fact that we're dealing with a global inflation problem because Biden keeps printing money and handing it over to Zelensky. And JJ was like, well, that's not true. Well, turns out, like, the evidence is borne out. And I'm not looking for a fight here with JJ in particular, but all those people who've been saying, Zelensky's such a good guy, he's a hero, walking around in his fatigues, addressing the Congress, sitting house of both houses of the United States, the Senate and House of Representatives. And he's walking around, he's video conferencing. Sean Penn's going to visit him. All these celebrities are pitching up and shaking his hand. And he's like, the leader we were waiting for, posing for the cover of Vogue magazine with Annie Leibovitz photographing him and his wife. Turns out he's just a standard venal crook like everyone else. And this does not mean, for those people who are about to hop on the criticism wagon and say, well, does this mean you're a pro-Putin guy? No.
Two things can be correct.
Two things correct. Thank you, Phumi. Two things can be true at the same time. So I would like to say to all those people who've been saying, Zelensky's our hero. Yeah, where are you now?
So
stand up for this guy now.
The thing that, and I read a really interesting article a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, talk about the printing money, the inflation, and talking about this woman. What's her first name? I forgot. Her last name is something Blanco. But anyway, all that these people have in common is incredible greed. And this article was about the fact that, we're talking about inflation being a worldwide problem, but it's actually not inflation, it's greedflation, right? So it's caused by this excessive greed. We spoke about the FNB, RMB executives. Hold on.
Because
wait
there's a definition of inflation. Greedflation may be a whole separate thing.
Wait.
But they're printing money, and that's going to cause inflation.
But all of the excessive pay that people are getting. So I saw another TikTok with somebody talking about Standard Bank executives and how much they earn. Like 154,000 Rand a day. Yesterday, we read the article about Capitec talking about how South Africans are becoming poorer and they are, but when you look at the paycheck of those Capitec executives earning 160,000 Rand a day.
Right.
Right.
A day.
So what their pay package when broken down into days, and the average Capitec worker earns 1,200 Rands a day. Or you walk into Woolworths, this is everybody's favorite one. You walk into Woolworths and 6 liters of milk, they've now brought down the price. It was like 124 Rand.
Sorry?
6 liters of milk. Now the price has been brought down because there was so much outcry. And then you look at the pay package of the CEO, the just recently, not departed, CEO of Woolworths, who's, I think 50 million Rand was her bonus. So not her salary, just her bonus. And you're just like,
that's a little excessive.
But
she does need to buy this bag. So, I mean,
listen.
Interesting point here being made by lovely Lady Lee. Where does Glynnis find the time to come on the Gareth Cliff show when she's busy with so much lately? Dragging that one. Well, she's, you know what? She's got her priorities right. As Phumi and I have pointed out many times on this show, you come on this show and good things happen to you politically. So,
exactly.
Just saying, it's not that out of context. So Ryan also is the biggest fan of Elon Musk. He's just let us know that Elon just tweeted, all systems green for launch. SpaceX are going to fire up that rocket of theirs. The Starship and Super Heavy rocket, SpaceX.com, are launching today. Very exciting. So, maybe this will take us closer to getting off this planet with all these crooks.
He was also in the news yesterday because the DA brought to everyone's attention that he wanted to bring his Starlink to South Africa, but it is being blocked because
there's some greedy people in the ANC who will not allow ordinary South Africans to benefit from satellites that will give them free internet. Why? Because there's no BEE. In other words, and by BEE, they don't mean that they are looking after the interests of the average black person. They mean there's no kickback for the ANC. That's what they mean. Greed. So I want to talk about this because I'm just blown away by the story of this woman with this R1 million outfit. But at the same time, it does strike me as very, very weird that some people are totally okay. And by the way, if you've founded a company and you sell your company, you get a big payday, that's a whole different thing. You've probably earned that. And if someone's prepared to pay you for that in the free market, that's great. But if you are just a manager of someone else's company, in other words, you don't own the business, you didn't start the business, it wasn't your idea, you've just managed it. And let's say you've done a really good job managing it. I think you deserve a bonus. But these bonuses seem to me to be out of the park excessive, especially in a time where everybody is suffering. And you want to differentiate. Now, I'm not
where most people are suffering because those bonuses don't. No,
those people are not suffering. But Phumi, I'm not one of these people who's obsessed with the differential between rich and poor, because that's always going to be there. And I mean, unless you've been paying zero attention, you've never picked up a history book. The sad reality is that 2% of the population of the planet will always live in absolute excess and luxury. And the other 98% will always be pretty much on the poverty line, if not below it. That's just how it is. Yeah. And you can look at this as a feature of life, a feature of distribution in the universe, the Pareto principle, as they call it. And you can do certain things to try and make it a bit better for the people at the very bottom. And, there are a lot of people obsessed with taxing the rich, which is also not the worst idea in the world. But I don't think that our priorities are right. I mean, it's clearly not an issue of people who've earned their money and have done well. And we're talking about middle class or upper class or working class people who've really fought hard to earn what they've got, whether it's a little or a lot. But the problem to me is that the ones who are stealing from the public purse especially, it's different to the free market. Businesses want to pay each other outrageous amounts of money for things that are brand associated, that are mostly sentimental. That's their business. If you and I decide we're going to deal with each other and we're going to add 3 zeros to something, that doesn't impact anyone else. But if you are going to steal from ordinary people and you're going to, this bag is
boggles the mind.
I'm horrified. But if someone is dumb enough to pay $100,000 for that bag, they can charge that. But what I have a major problem with is this person who's actually dealing with money that's been stolen. Clearly, right? This is not a person who's built up an empire. She hasn't got any intellectual property. She hasn't worked super hard in her life. Who knows? But I don't think so. And she's doing this to show off and to get our love and attention. And it's just the saddest thing. Sad, sad, sad. I wouldn't want to be her.
Yeah. And so here's the thing that is also, for me, quite galling, is you also see how people in South Africa will pay lip service to being anti-corruption, right? But also will very much love and adore and hold up, and hence they become celebrities, which is why they do what they do.
And it's like Zelensky, right? He's become a celebrity. That's what he is.
What's her name? Like a Sean Pisane, Mamkhize, right? suddenly she's, because of this kind of, which she sought out, this love and adoration that she has sought out, it has washed her clean of all the shit that she, so how she gets to where she gets is all of this corruption and terrible houses built at like 10 rand and billed to the state at 1,000 rand. Now she's got all of this money, but then you then have DSTV giving her a TV show and, reality TV show, watching her spend all of this ill-gotten gains.
So how much are we to blame? And by we, I mean the public at large. I mean, I don't watch these reality TV shows, but clearly there are a lot of people who do. And then they'll complain about these people, but they want to see them. I can't stand these
it's
real.
the reason
these
this
real
woman
housewives,
could do that.
I hate these Real Housewives shows. I do not see the point of giving the most vacuous, vapid, and uninteresting people in the world who are really just living on their husband's success. I don't see any reason to put these people on TV. I don't care what they think of each other. I'm not interested where they shop. I don't care what kind of a lifestyle, in inverted commas, they have, or who their friends are, what they eat, what they drink, what they wear. I could not give less of a damn. And if you are one of those people who does watch this stuff, you don't really have room to criticize the kind of thing that I'm criticizing this morning.
No,
you don't.
But it's different in an economy like Atlanta, for instance. You can have that housewife of the plastic surgeon, doctor who has that kind of money, but in Gqeberha, who makes that kind of money?
I'm not interested in either. I'm not. And I pity the people who are, and I pity the people who would want to be on this show. There was this one woman that I think Mash explained to me, or Simpiwe, about this one woman who was on the Real Housewives of Pretoria or something. And she and her husband were like on carte blanche because they ran this nail salon and they hadn't paid some of their franchise. I don't know what the story was. But basically, because this woman was on the TV show, it opened up this whole controversy around them and basically affected their business very negatively.
No, that's not what affected their business negatively.
I don't know. I don't know the story. I don't care. You see, I genuinely am not interested. But now this situation and this Mkhize woman who you're talking about too, these are people who are so desperate for attention that they are willing to sacrifice the very reason we noticed them in the first place, which is just outrageous and outlandish wealth. It's sad. It's really, really sad. Now, I am not one of those people, and I'm proud of that. I don't watch these shows. I don't care. I could meet you on a night out. You could be wearing a R1 million outfit, and I would be none the wiser. You know me. I wouldn't pick up that you were wearing fake or real jewelry. I wouldn't pick up that you had a real or fake bag. I wouldn't pick up that you hadn't paid for any drinks and someone else was. I wouldn't notice any of that stuff. But the quality of your character and the conversation we might have, I think I'd pick that up. And you would be found wanting.
Wow. But I could brag about the cost of everything. I could wow you with expensive champagne and cigars.
I'm not your target market if that's what you I know you hate this stuff as much as me. But those people who like these shows, and I mean, could be you. Maybe I'm hitting at a very nervous, sensitive spot on some people. But if you watch this bullshit and you partake in this bullshit, you can't criticize it.
But and look, I think I wish more people in the correct spaces paid attention, right? So like the haters on Twitter who will go and find all of the dirt and kind of like remind everybody about your dirt. I wish there was some guy who's just, an diligent worker at SARS who watches all of these things and goes, you housewife of Gqeberha, whose husband is so-and-so, let me check out your tax returns for the past 5 years.
Well,
that's what I wish for.
So supposedly SARS is the only department that really does know what it's doing in South Africa. They brought in more money, according to Edward Kiswetter, in February when he explained, how much tax they brought in with the budget and everything. Brought in more money than they expected to. So great success. They perform very well compared to all other government departments.
If they don't have to do lifestyle audits, right? if they just went and looked at tax returns of some of these real housewives and their husbands, then I would feel that they're doing something. But when you have, again, when you're talking about the complete desperations of ordinary South Africans, and then you have a revenue service that is out here bragging about, yeah, I know you're already strangled, but you know what? I have milked my pound fish out of you. That is bullshit, and I don't agree with that. But I'm just saying, if somebody was like hardworking and looking at the tax returns of some of those people, maybe.
And let me just point out for those people who think that this is just a new money South African thing, some comments. There's some comments about how this is like ANC tenderpreneur. This has happened in Russia with oligarchs for the longest time, since Boris Yeltsin, that old drunk, put a whole bunch of his friends in charge of oil, gas, mining, and everything else, which is no different to what the ANC's done.
What's happened here?
Right. And those oligarchs are just as revolting, and their wives are just as revolting, and they will spend money on branded bullshit to make themselves look as rich as possible to poor people. And I do not understand, and to other rich people, obviously, too, but I do not understand this compulsion that some of these people have to show how much they've got, because they've probably got very little in terms of character, personality, general likability to share.
But, making the point a little bit earlier, also about the poverty of spirit, that no matter how much money you have, if you are not enough, that money will never be enough. You'll never fill the hole.
Say that again, because it needs to be said. And there are probably some people listening right now. You might be in your 20s and you might be thinking, well, one day when I got lots of money, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be happy. Just say that again.
No, it really is. The hole will be there. The hole will be there if you are not enough for yourself. If you haven't found the well to be happy, to be sufficient for yourself, it's not going to come from external sources. It's why we see, have I told you about one of my favorite shows? This is it's a terrible show, but it is, it's like watching a train wreck. It's called I Blew It.
Oh, these are the people who win the lotto, right?
They win the lotto, they get RAF payouts, they get all these or their grandmother dies and leaves them with 3 million. And it's never except for the one lady, Miponi, right? Who's like the MVP of I Blew It. Most of these individuals are getting 1.2 million, 3 million rand. But because they are not enough. And so they try and fill what's in their life with all of this.
Big black hole just sucks everything in.
Within months, guys, the Miponi spent, I think, 7 million rand within 6 months.
Well, again, to go back to what you were talking about,
because it's not enough.
I'm not really that interested in what other people have or what they earn. I'm really not. It blows my mind that someone would spend $110,000 on a bag. It really does, because it's just outside of the limits of what I can conceive. But I'm not that interested in a Russian oligarch's wife, no matter how much Louis Vuitton she's got pasted all over her. I'm not really interested in these real housewives in South Africa who are, listen, we all know people who've made lots of money, right? We all know people who've got tons and tons of cash. But there are different levels of that too.
Absolutely.
And the funny thing is that the people I know who are truly wealthy, and these people, one small withdrawal, Switzerland goes third world, right? that kind of wealth. They don't show any of it. They don't walk around in branded clothing or volunteer to go on some reality show. They don't need to prove anything to anybody. And that's why they are so rich that they could buy all these other supposedly rich people and put them into slavery if they wanted.
But it is, Hyman. I'm going to move straight along from that one.
Oh, my God. Hey, listen, we've got Dr. Mark on this morning. You remember how much controversy he brought last time when he was talking about men and testosterone and relationships. And, no,
Dr. Mark. What is Dr. Mark? Dr. Mark talking to us about today?
Well, you'll see.
I hope it's not like plastic surgery. Now that we've spent all this time talking about vacuous fixes.
Congo Chris says, I spent most of my wealth on alcohol, drugs, and women. The rest I wasted. I can't remember whose quote that was. I love that.
I love that quote.
No, that's good. Yonda says, why have outrage of this explicit splurging from these crooked vermouth? What? Sure. We know nothing will happen. Okay, so that is a good point. Like, why be angry? Because you know what? The conspicuous consumption people, as I've said before, they're putting their money back into the economy. Unwittingly, they are.
No, they're not. Because if you're buying a Birkin bag, that money is not going back into the economy.
No, but if you're spending here, if you're spending here on like alcohol and that kind of thing, it's here.
Listen, this conspicuous spending kind of people need the external validation of expensive French champagne.
Okay.
They're not buying MCC, baby.
You make a good point.
They're not buying MCC. They're not buying B&G champagne, They're buying like caseloads of Veuve and Cartier. That was the thing that this woman kept saying. Cartier. Like, gosh. Very irritating.
Kala says, if you want to see how not enough the wealthy can be, watch Below Deck. It's stinking rich groups on yacht charters behaving like Brackpan. Would raise an eyebrow too. Yeah, I can believe
What is Below Deck? I'm going to look for it.
It's a show on one of these channels about people who they hire these yachts for the weekend or for a week. And then a lot of the crew on these yachts are South Africans because, a lot of South Africans have gone to look for work overseas. They can make more money. And it's quite interesting stuff from what I've heard. I haven't watched the show, but I've heard it's really interesting because you see these people and they are just venal, terrible people. They just spend, and it's all about impressing each other and abusing people. It's like throwing your money in the face of people who you're like, oh, I don't want these oysters and this caviar. Get me different oysters and caviar from a different place 300 kilometers away and fly it in by helicopter now because I've got money.
So this is the thing, on one side of the spectrum, you're kind of going, why is this thing why are we watching this? Why is this on TV? What's going on here? But on the other side, it's kind of like the reason you slow down when there's an accident.
Schadenfreude.
It's a little bit of rubbernecking. You're just like, what the hell are these people on about? Who are these people? And hopefully when I see them, and that's why it's always the most vile of them, right? Is it makes me feel better about my crappy little life to see how unhappy they actually all are in all those wads of cash.
Good old Schadenfreude. Nothing wrong with that. Nobody's above it. All right. So speaking of things that we're not above being grounded by the real everyday concerns of our bodies, our health, our aging, all these kinds of things. And I'm always happy to have Dr. Mark on. Hey, Dr. Mark, how are you? He's, of course,
muted.
You're on mute. He's the host of the
Let's try again.
There we go.
Good morning.
Morning, Doc.
Morning. How are you?
Good. I want to talk to you about something today that I've picked up on from a lot of people. There's people who go on these detoxes, right? And we got to talk about that because I want to know from you whether it works or not.
That's what Dr. Nandi became famous for.
Right. And Dr. Mark, while we're on detoxing, you can maybe also address one or two other fads that are going on, which I'm sure you've encountered in your practice in the recent few months. These cold baths that everybody thinks are the cure to everything. And these people who just like go cold turkey on things like alcohol or smoking or whatever else. But let's start with detoxing. What do you think of it?
Okay, so you know what? We actually discussed this last week on the show, and we're going to discuss it again today. I want to change the word or the thought about you are what you eat, rather to you are what you do not eliminate. The problem that we have with detoxing is the body stores toxins in specifically fat tissue. Now, this is all around your organs, visceral fat, and this is in your brain. So to answer one of your questions, going cold turkey, and the body is not prepared to deal with these excessive amounts of toxins that's now going to be released, is going to overwhelm the body's filtration organs, specifically the liver, the bile, the kidneys, and most probably your skin as well. So going cold turkey on something, that can work. Going on a juice fast, that's dangerous. So think about it. All of us think of detoxing. You're going to go on a green juice that you're going to be drinking for 4 or 5 days without eating. That's very, very unhealthy, specifically for patients who have underlying conditions. Diabetes, hypertension, excessive cholesterol, whose thyroid function isn't working properly, whose kidney function is deteriorating, or who has problems with their liver. If you lose fat, fat stores toxins. That's why we have fat cells. They don't only give energy, but that's where we trap the stuff that we don't want. And suddenly, they're released into the system. Besides the fact that you're going to feel like crap, you're going to actually make yourself worse.
All right,
so,
but Dr. Mark,
we'll be talking about that a bit more today.
So a lot of people think that when you endure pain or you feel like shit, it must be because your body's getting rid of toxins. I mean, you see these ridiculous videos of like some special cream you put on and all this stuff comes out of your skin and suddenly you feel better afterwards. I mean, most of that is nonsense, right? And
Absolutely.
there isn't some magic formula you can drink every morning and, you know, by the end of the day, you're going to be completely free of toxins. Your body is constantly trying to keep these things out. You put things in. Sometimes you are knowingly and voluntarily ingesting poisonous stuff. But your body is also a chemical factory. It's meant to be dealing with your nose, kind of air conditions the rest of your body. Your lungs are constantly processing the shitty things out of air. Your liver is getting rid of chemicals that you shouldn't have in your bloodstream and your digestive tract. And of course, the kidneys are the filters. So you're always processing. Toxins are a part of your life.
You know what? You should come onto the show because there's very little apparently that we can teach you. Gareth, you're absolutely right. I think what people forget is when they hear the word metabolism, they think of weight. Okay, someone has a slow metabolism, therefore they gain weight. Metabolism is the sum total of all the chemical processes that happens within your body. Now, if those processes start slowing down, the body will try and compensate by putting stuff away that it can't excrete, and therefore you are what you do not eliminate. It's about keeping optimal balance and functioning within the different systems. And the body is incredibly good at compensating for that. So we cannot get away from toxins. Just the air that we breathe, as you so rightly said, is full of poison and metals and contaminants. And the food that we eat is contaminated with pesticides, whether it's organic or not. You can't get rid of it. So the body now has to deal with it. So storing them in fat where they do not affect the body as badly is what we do. And therefore we see excessive weight gain. It's not only about what we eat, it's how the body needs to deal with these things that we throw at it on a continuous basis.
So then am I on?
Yeah.
So then detoxing, and I saw somebody earlier talking about like bowel irrigations.
I know.
Which always freaks me out, because I'm like, it's actually the English word. Like many young Black people like around my age will know all about the spate, right? And that's just the English word for it. Does that work?
You know what? I actually think it's not a good thing. Colonic irrigation. If someone sticks a hose up your bum to wash out what you've put in, the problem is they wash out your microbiome as well. So you actually make things worse. The microorganisms that live in your gut weighs as much as your brain. There's more of them than you have cells in your human body. So what you do with something like a colonic irrigation is you disturb them. These organisms,
at your peril.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
These organisms need to stay in colonies in certain places where they have a certain function. So if you now go and mix them around or wash them away, you give pathogenic bacteria and organisms a chance to get a foothold. So you will see with colonic irrigation, when you lie there and wash things out, after that, they try and repopularize your gut. But that's impossible. There are trillions and hundreds of thousands of different species of organisms. And the gut really is a place where you like xenophobia. They need to stay where they need to stay. They do not need to.
All right, Dr. Mark, let's just level with everybody here, because there's a lot of this that has to do with, medical science and dietetics and a whole lot of other stuff. But in reality, most people are looking to start again. They want to reboot. They want to convince themselves and probably everybody else that they're on a new path. It's like some kind of Damascus moment. Just because you're getting a hosepipe shoved up your asshole does not mean you're going to be a better person by next week. You'll be exactly the same person. Chances are you'll be
I think you're going to feel worse.
You'll be a bit worse.
Less crappy, but you're going to feel worse.
Quite less crappy.
And going onto a juice diet and cutting out this and cutting out that, it's actually not going to change that much about your internal biology. The reality is that what you need to do in general is be a little bit fitter, eat a little bit less, try to cut out sugars where possible, try to limit the amount of anything that you're doing in excess.
Oh, no.
Gareth brought me chocolate and he's talking about cutting out sugar.
But come on, Doc. I mean, isn't it just like common sense, basically?
You know what, Gareth? I often talk about stress and the management of stress because it's detoxing. Now, as you said, it's common sense, but putting it into practice is actually very difficult.
Yeah.
I think for one thing about detoxing and feeling better that we forget is getting proper quality of sleep, not quantity. It's not how long you sleep, it's how good you sleep. If you ask the question to yourself, if you wake up in the morning, are you refreshed? And you answer no, you have a problem. One of the organs that needs to be detoxified is the brain. So you need to wash all the crap out of your brain. So that's the one that you need to irrigate. And the only way that you irrigate that is through sleep. So getting physical activity, surrounding yourself with nature, music, something that you like that clears the voice out of your head, getting proper sleep is probably the best thing that you can do to feel better. It's not going to come in a pill. Yes, we need multivitamins and antioxidants and juices and all of those things. They have a role to play, but it's lifestyle. Lifestyle that costs no money.
And it takes
give you the most benefit.
And it takes consistency, and a lot of it is boring, and you're not going to be able to post it in your Instagram because you won't have instant results. And it's really about those dreary day-to-day decisions. it's not going to be a quick fix. Am I right? There's no,
it's a lifestyle. Like you said, it's a lifestyle, and it's a lifestyle that takes time and effort to cultivate. It's difficult to become quiet. Do me a favor, go and try and do this. Take your morning beverage. It shouldn't be coffee, but I do coffee. So take your morning beverage, go sit outside in your garden, and for 5 minutes, listen to the sounds around you without hearing your own voice in your head. It's an active form of meditation, but you know what? It's bloody difficult to do. Now try and do that every morning and put in a walk of 10 minutes, just around your block. And that will change your life. And if you can incorporate this twice a day and stretch that meditation to 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes before you go to bed, you will be a different person.
I don't think a lot of people could do that. But Doc, we got
especially the not hearing your own voice in your head. Jeez.
It's a nightmare, especially if you have 7 like me.
So Congo Chris asks here in the comments, why is it that if I take a 2 kilogram shit, I mean that's heavy, right?
I don't know what you
He says, why
would you weigh it?
I don't know, but I'm guessing he reckons it's like 2 kilograms. And then a lot of people are saying here, that doesn't sound good. Wow. John Bad Dog says, your shit's 2 kilograms. What are you eating? Slow down, buddy. 2 kilograms would be a lot, right, Doc?
I think so. Because, you know what? Sorry, what are you eating? Bricks? No, you know what? And again, why would you weigh it?
You know what? I'm horrified that
you have to look at it.
Because 2 kilograms.
Agree. You have to examine your stool for consistency, for color, for changes. Yes, but that's just a quick look down the toilet, not put it on a scale.
Because 2 kilograms is like that thing of sugar. That thing of sugar that's like this, guy.
It's a lot.
It's like, I'm just saying, it's like this.
Yeah, I've seen Chihuahuas leave landmines that you would get frightened of. But
all right, well, let's leave it at that with Chris's enormous elephant turds, and we'll pick this up with something much more salubrious next time around. Dr. Mark will be live on the T Health Show for another episode today. If you haven't absolutely subscribed to this podcast, you need to do it today. So, Doc, thank you for coming on this show, and we will see you later.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Very good. There's Dr. Mark. Don't forget to subscribe to the T Health Show and any other show on Cliff Central that you are interested in listening to.
T Health is amazing.
T Health's great. We're going to, oh, wow, you thought we were dealing with a lot of bad stuff in the first hour of the show this morning. Well, we're going to be thrilled to have Glynnis Breytenbach on for the Burning Platform. But look who else is here. Kanthan Pillay has made it to the studio.
You've taken off your sunglasses.
I have taken off my sunglasses, Phumi.
Okay.
He walks in here looking like Stevie Wonder.
We will be back with the Burning Platform. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. CliffCentral.com.
All I do is win, no matter what. We can't be... There's a heavy reliance on nostalgia that is dangerous. And I do love old music. We all grew up around it. We all love those songs. But for me, we can't only be listening to things from 2008 when it's 2023. And there's a running joke with me and my friends, and we'll be like, we hear Khaleesi's like Millionaire one more time. We love it. But at this point, please, stop it. Stop.
CliffCentral.com This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Essentially, a grey import is a vehicle that shouldn't be in South Africa and is imported and in the country for another reason.
100%.
Besides being for consumers in South Africa to drive around our streets.
Yeah. So if I had to define it, essentially it's a good that's been imported to a country through unofficial or unauthorized distribution methods.
I mean, okay. If we call a spade, vehicles come into the country and they pass through our ports.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that's where the where it goes a little bit awry.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
All right, it is time for the burning platform, and we are going to find out exactly. Is this too loud or too soft for you?
Too loud.
Too loud. All right, there we go. Well, we've got Glynnis Breytenbach joining us in just a moment. But just to remind you of what happened in Parliament, I'm going to play you a little bit of this to give you an idea of why Glynnis was the talk of the town last week and why everybody is suddenly anointing her as the hero of the moment. And I don't think she doesn't deserve it by any means, but I think she's quite sanguine about what public attention means as well. We'll speak to her in a minute. Just to refresh your memory, here's what happened when the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, was in Parliament.
Way of talking with the families, the victims. Indeed, that point is taken on board. But broadly, it would be good to say this has happened and we've arrested those people of South Africa, as it has happened.
Minister, I would like to say two things to you, because I probably only have a minute left.
You don't.
I don't. Yankee, give me a minute. You give me a minute.
I will give you that minute so that you assist the committee going forward.
Just say two things to you. One, please don't lecture me on what the police do and don't do. I know what they do, I know what they don't do. I did it for years. You can teach me nothing about police investigations, with respect. Secondly, and I'm glad you take the point, and I'm glad that you concede it, it's an absolute disgrace that the victims of this man were not warned, were not prepared, were not protected. It's an absolute disgrace, and you should hang your head in shame, all of you. It's no way to treat people. But the most important thing is, answer me this. If while you were so busy protecting the secrecy of your investigation and deciding not to warn the South African public, who incidentally expect all of us here to protect them, and we've all failed, all of us. If Bester had murdered another woman, had raped another woman, what would you have said then?
Well, I'm not a speculator. That has not happened. Yes, it did not happen. And secondly, I know you are a prosecutor, a vintage one for that matter. But don't tell me about investigating and the police. You only deal with that after they've investigated. Yes, prosecution, indeed, but investigation, absolutely no, not for you. Thank you.
All right. Well, here she is, vintage prosecutor, and now the DA's Shadow Minister of Justice, Glynnis Breytenbach. Glynnis, it's nice to have you on the show. Thank you. I know you've got a busy schedule, and I appreciate your time this morning. Kanthan and Phumi and I can't wait to get started, but you've been getting a lot of love on social media. I know it doesn't mean a huge amount to you, but South Africa is just so desperate for any kind of leadership / accountability at the moment. Are you surprised at all by the reaction to you just doing your job in Parliament?
Hi, Gareth, and hi, everybody. Certainly, I was very surprised, taken aback. I have learned a long time ago not to attach too much value to what happens on social media, and as everybody knows, I don't participate in it myself. I think it's a bit of an indictment on where we are as a country, that people were so enthralled by this exchange in Parliament, because it is what Parliament does, and it is what should happen every single day in Parliament. It's what MPs are supposed to be doing, holding institutions to account. But I think South Africans are so used to, people not being held accountable, there being no consequences for appalling behavior, for appalling failures day after day after day, that any kind of holding people to account has this effect, which just means that we're in a really bad place.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start, though, as much as it is a bad place. It's a great place to start the conversation. Parliament grilling the police ministry and the justice ministry seems appropriate to me. You also had a fair go at the G4S security group, but isn't it an indictment on the public sector and the bureaucracy that a private company had to be called in to manage a prison in the first place? And I mean, these guys clearly were out of their depth. They obviously couldn't answer any questions. They found themselves completely wanting during the questioning that I saw, where you were asking them pretty basic questions. But isn't the real disaster that there is a Department of Correctional Services and they're not doing what Department of Correctional Services should do?
Well, the public-private partnership with private prisons has a long history. And it came into being a long time before any of this committee was in Parliament. I was still happily putting people in jail at that time. It was around 2002, I think. And so, as I understand the history of this issue, and I don't have first-hand knowledge, is that we needed more prison space, and we needed particularly more maximum security prison space, and there was no budget within the Department of Correctional Services to accommodate that, and so this public-private partnership was entered into at that time so that private enterprise would build the prisons, capacitate them, and run them for their own profit for 25 years, after which those prisons, fully maintained, well-resourced, and in good condition, would then revert back to correctional services. So it was seen as a win-win. Correctional services would get 2 private prisons that were state of the art, because they, as compared to other prisons in South Africa, they are well built, well maintained, well resourced, well capacitated. They revert back to DCS in 2026 and 2027 respectively. And the private enterprise get on the horse and head to the sunset. So it was seen as a win-win, but clearly, it hasn't been a win-win, because DCS is paying upwards of 45 million a month for each of those private prisons. That's, in anybody's language, a hell of a lot of money.
Sure.
They're required to look after approximately 2,900 odd inmates. They can never be less, they can never be more. They have no overcrowding. So conditions in those prisons are optimal as prisons go. And for this, they get paid a lot of money, and they have one job. Their job is to keep maximum security prisoners in prison in a humane fashion and in good health. Something they failed completely and utterly to do, and for which they incidentally accept no accountability. It's the ridiculousness of it is quite bizarre.
Guys, I'm just doing a quick calculation here based on what Glynnis has just said to us. And if you take that 45 million a month and divide it by 2,900 prisoners, so that's roughly 15,500 rand per prisoner per month that we're ending up paying. So I'm very curious, Glynnis, would you be able to give us a sense of how that compares with what is being paid at the other facilities that under correctional services? And one of the other interesting things that came up for me was, clearly we've had these escapes that have been identified at the private prisons. Do we have any stats that you're aware of in terms of what the number of escapes are like from our other prisons? Are they more porous, less porous? But I'm not sure what the yardstick is of the private sector incompetence versus
public
correctional.
Sector, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it's not comparing apples with apples for starters. So Public prisons run by DCS are not state of the art by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know if any of you have ever visited a prison. If not, I invite you to accompany me to visit one. If they're quite dreadful. And prisons, let me say, are, in my own personal view, not meant to be a summer camp. So, it's not supposed to be the most pleasant part of your life being in prison. But having said that, your punishment is being in prison. Your freedom has been taken away. Your right to make decisions about when and where you do things is removed from you. That's your punishment. The prison itself shouldn't be your punishment. So our prisons are hellholes, generally speaking, and most of them, in my view, are a blight on society and human rights abuses. They should be bulldozed. They can't be fixed. They should be bulldozed, rebuilt, and we should rethink our entire system of incarceration. It isn't working. It doesn't work, and it's a shocking, shocking disgrace. Having said that, people do escape, and for good reason. Again, it's not the best place to be. People do escape in DCS a lot more than in private prisons. But you can't compare the two because the private prisons are relatively new. They're well constructed. They have state-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art everything. So technically, they're way ahead of DCS. They have the best surveillance equipment. They have the best perimeter fencing. They are much better resourced with regards to a ratio of inmate and warders. So you can't compare the two. There are escapes from the private prisons, which is shocking. They shouldn't be. Given what they are, where they are, what they have, there should be no escapes from private prisons. The only way there can be escapes from private prisons is by way of corruption. Escapes from DCS, on the other hand, are often as a result of
holes in the fence, I guess.
Yeah, holes in the fence. Not working. The lock's not working. The water taking a nap, whatever. Probably also as a result of corruption, but not on the scale that you must see at private prisons, because it's so much more difficult to escape from a private prison. But there are escapes. Last year there were from the Malmesbury prison, which is one of the better prisons in South Africa, quite well run, quite modern, quite well resourced, quite well kept as far as infrastructure is concerned. There's 18 inmates escaped on the same day last year. They were all rearrested within 24 hours. And that's the difference between those escapes and this one. This one, I worked out of the prison, they still can't tell us how, despite all this fancy equipment, despite all the perimeter fencing, despite having a much better warder inmate ratio. They can't tell us how they got out there and say they don't know. And they made no attempt to A, publicize the escape, and B, there was no attempt made to rearrest him. And I'm quite sure that if Groundup hadn't published, we would all be happily unaware that Thabo Bester was living his best life in Hyde Park and doing his shopping at Trucks.
Well, so as entertaining as it was to watch the committee grill all the various players in this fiasco, I'm quite interested to know that other than that, what kind of recourse, if any, can we expect? What now? What then? They were very, like the G4S guys were very, they're not taking any kind of responsibility. So, and then what? So what happens next?
Well, the G4S guys were, in my view, totally unprepared. They came there thinking they were dealing with a bunch of idiots, and they made a big mistake because, in my view, not myself, but the entire committee performed very well. Everyone was well prepared. Everyone had done a lot of research, and every single member of that committee asked very penetrating questions. They came there totally unprepared, but they came there with this laid-back attitude that absolutely outraged me. They started with
having asked for an extension.
They don't come when we ask them to come. They thumb their nose at the portfolio committee. When we summons them, they arrive and send us a little, I don't know, what was it, a 12-page report that's including the title page and the last page that said thank you. And they said it took them until midnight the previous night to prepare. Well, shame.
And then they send you two people who can't answer any questions because they have no first-hand
knowledge. That was their subcontractor, Integratron. They sent a director and a legal advisor who were really like two little hares in the headlights, completely out of their depth, had no answers to any of the questions, and it was very unfair of their company to send them there. They had no first-hand knowledge of anything. They were not hands-on for anything at all. They came there with a hearsay, an affidavit opposed to that was complete and utter hearsay. And they had no answers. It wasn't their fault. But, to skewer people like that on a public platform is no feat. And eventually, we just stopped asking them questions because it was quite clear that it was going nowhere and that they were hung out to dry. Yeah.
But Glynnis, you did uncover something interesting. And again, you said preparation. I was quite impressed to see that you knew who the holding company was, who the major shareholder in that holding company was, and how that major shareholder was also a big donor to the ANC. Now, despite all that we hear about governance and how many hoops and rings people have to jump through to get any kind of state contracts, it appears that if you just know the right people, you can still get whatever you need out of government in terms of expenditure and what do they call it? Procurement. So how does this kind of thing get through a system which we are told, because of all the red tape and the many different filters it has to pass through, we're told, no, it's foolproof. There's no way corruption can possibly happen. It sounds to me like it did.
It certainly did. There's no question about it. And if you go and look at all those little, I think there are 10 of them, shareholding companies. If you go and look at who's behind all of those companies, all ANC bigwigs. Remember, these contracts were entered into in 2000 or 2002. A long time ago, so they've been skimming the cream off the top for many, many years. And of course, it's a corrupt contract. There's no question about it.
But so I still don't know. Is there going to be consequence? So even as they were unprepared, all of that. And I think Justice Cameron was also quite fascinating in what he had to say and why he leaked all of this information. But is there going to be consequence?
Well, there must be. So the Portfolio Committee has resolved to continue this inquiry. We will schedule more days and summons more people and probe further until we're satisfied that we understand what happened, because we have an oversight function. And so the committee's responsibility here is to make sure that A, we understand what happened, and B, that we ensure that the DCS puts in place systems and procedures that will prevent this happening again. So that's our job, and we're going to do it, make no mistake. But B, if Cele or Lamola had an ounce of integrity, they would resign. Of course they don't, and so they won't. If Cyril, bless him, had an ounce of backbone, he would fire them. But of course he doesn't, so he won't.
So, Glynnis, can I ask you about something that's a lot closer to home? I know it's been many years since you were at the NPA, and people have forgotten your story there too, because you were kind of hounded out, and you had to fight for survival. And you've taken on a political role, which I admire you for doing that, because politics is such a horrible business. But before this, you were a prosecutor. The NPA comes up almost every week on this goddamn show. And I cannot see a single thing that they're doing. You were in the NPA. I just want to know from you, objectively as you possibly can put it, what are the NPA doing? Have we arrested anyone in South Africa in the last 5 years under Shamila Batoy? And is anything going on there at all except people pushing pencils around?
Gareth, the NPA is a sad, sad story. In fairness to Shamila Batoy, she inherited what in Afrikaans they call a bankrot boedel. So she inherited a deeply flawed and fraught organization that had been very, very seriously damaged by the Zuma era of hollowing out any kind of investigative or prosecutorial capacity in the NPA and the entire criminal justice system. I think she underestimated the job, and I think she underestimated the damage that was done. I think she's tried her very best to put it on the right road. I must say that after, as you say, all this time, I'm a little disappointed. I don't see much action. I honestly don't see much improvement. They come and they report to the portfolio committee regularly, and it's always just watch the space in the next 6 months, and then that 6 months pass and very, very little, if anything, has happened. So it's exceptionally disappointing, and there haven't been, despite the spate of arrests late last year, when I think they arrested 5 or 6 or 7 people, but none of the high profile people. They did have a small profile, but none of the high profile people. And arrests don't, one swallow doesn't make a summer. Arrests are nothing if you don't follow them up with successful prosecutions where people are convicted and bums go to jail. So and then you forget about it for the next 6 months, and then eventually you quietly withdraw those cases, and nobody ever asks questions again.
True. I mean, we've seen so many people. We saw the VPS guys come into the special criminal court, and they read their charges, and then that went away. Then we saw Transnet coming in, and that went away. We saw ESCOM coming in, and that went away. But my question is like Bheki Cele, a little speculative. Lots of organizations get into trouble, which is where the NPA is. And what they require is somebody to turn it around. A turnaround specialist is what they would say in private sector. If you were brought in, what are the quick wins that you believe could turn it around? Or is it just, that's it, it's fraught and we must just throw it away?
No, the NPA can certainly be fixed, and it's unfair for me to comment on what I would do because I'm not there. What I would do is I would fire a number of people who were obviously, blatantly, and to the knowledge of everybody, involved in state capture of the NPA. And if they litigated, so be it. Litigate on the side. And then I would appoint people of my choice, regardless of any noise, who I know can do the job, and I would allow them to do the job. Having said that, it's not quite that easy to do it, but it is what I would do, regardless of how easy or difficult it would be. Yeah.
I do. I mean, I hinted at it just now, but I think it's worthy of a little bit of storytelling here on your part, because you had a very, very ugly and difficult time after they essentially hounded you out of the NPA. I just want to, if we can revisit that for a second, just to give a bit of context to this, because a lot of people might only have seen you now with this Thabo Bester thing. Unfortunately, this is the attention span of the average person, right? And they don't know about any of this background. Just remind people what happened and who you were up against and what they did at that stage, and how hard you had to fight just to keep yourself alive, for starters.
Well, it's a long time ago, and it's like it's over, and I've moved on. But essentially, I wanted to prosecute a person called Richard Mdluli. He was the head of crime intelligence in the police. The powers that be at the NPA. So Lawrence Mkhwebi and Namtobo Jiba were wanting him to not be prosecuted. Obviously, he was connected to them and to Zuma quite tightly, and Mkhwebi instructed me to withdraw the charges against Mdluli. I refused, so he wrote a letter to Mdluli's attorneys telling them the matter had been withdrawn. So we had little choice but to withdraw it on an absolutely provisional basis. One of the other prosecutors who worked with me and I then penned a memorandum to Jiba telling her that while we thought Mkhwebi was wrong, and saying that if the decision was not reversed, we would take the decision on review, well knowing what the consequences of that would be. So, days after I delivered that memorandum, I was suspended. I was disciplined for an abuse of power in another case altogether. Had no connection to this matter. Really thumb-sucked, quite honestly, crap. 16 charges of nonsense that kept us busy for 2 years, and of which I was acquitted on all 16. I then went back to work. They gave me no work. I sat around for a year doing bugger all. And then Helen Zille phoned me up and said, how would you like to come to Parliament? So I said, well, it sounds a hell of a lot more interesting than what I'm doing now, so why not? So I went to Parliament. Then they had the gall. They couldn't win a disciplinary on a balance of probabilities. So then they had the gall to charge me criminally for exactly the same stuff, but precisely the same stuff. And then they prosecuted my attorney with me. And when in further particulars we asked why they're prosecuting the attorney, they said, because he's your attorney. That was their reply.
Is that what they said in the particulars? My word.
Yeah. In any event, 2 years later, and a lot of time wasted, we were both acquitted on all of those charges as well. So,
Sure.
yeah.
What a waste of time and
state resource.
And
all
state
that
resource.
money.
What's happened to Richard Mdluli, by the way?
He went to prison for the charges in relation to Opa Ramogibe. They eventually, after a massive cop-out on the part of the DPP in Johannesburg, they charged him with assault and I think kidnapping instead of murder. He was convicted of the assault and kidnapping and went to jail, I think, for 5 years. He's out now, as far as I'm aware. But the charges that I wanted to prefer against him for fraud, theft, and corruption are now being prosecuted. And he has appeared once or twice on that. I don't know how. The trial hasn't yet started. Yeah.
A long walk to freedom, or in this case, prison.
So, one of the things that I'm constantly trying to focus my mind on is not so much how you catch perpetrators after they've actually committed the deed, but how do you put in place preventive measures that are going to prevent them getting to that stage in the first place. And if I look in terms of the criminal justice system, obviously before stuff gets onto Shamila Batoi's desk, there's the entire incompetence of the police investigative process that has to be taken care of. And you end up with situations like documents being lost, misplaced, inability to track it. But today we actually have access to technology that does allow us to do tracking of this. And, at the most simple level, if one is able to simply take a photograph of a charge sheet and upload it into a blockchain protected environment, which means that it's never going to be deleted, and which means that dockets are never going to be lost. And all of this can be done at very little cost. Surely there's an opportunity here for Parliament to be coming up with a framework that says we can put in place such a system, which means that the ability of people to crook the system then goes away. I don't understand why conversations don't go in that direction instead of, just simply the question of capacity.
Yeah, well, again, that is a question of capacity, unfortunately. The integrated criminal justice system is a conversation that we've been having since I got to Parliament and for 10 years before then. It's been a system in the making for the last 20 or so years. Millions, if not billions, have been spent on it. And there's absolutely nothing, zero, to show for it. Nothing. It is the constant bitch and gripe of our committee about why this thing is making no progress. And there are long, convoluted reports produced about where it is, but in fact it's nowhere. And this is exactly what you're talking about. An integrated criminal justice system that's based on an electronic format that will allow not only the police to feed in documents to the NPA, but to gather information and intelligence from customs officials, from the Financial Intelligence Center, from the information that is allowable and available from the revenue services, information from the Reserve Bank, all of that information into one system so that you have the optimal view of everybody that you're looking at. It's a system that functions very well in other places in the world. And we just, they can't get it going. And one of the reasons is, forgive me, and I don't mean this badly, because really there are many prosecutors who go to work every day and do their very best and do it well. And there are many, many, many policemen who go to work every day under terrible circumstances and place themselves in great danger and do their best every single day, and we should be very, very grateful to all of them. But the fact of the matter is, if you go into a police station and just stand there and look around for 5 minutes, can you tell me that there's somebody there who's going to upload this stuff into a system like the blockchain system?
I think it's very possible to actually create that environment. I mean, all of us know how to upload videos onto TikTok as a very basic example. And just a simple interface that allows you to take a picture of the charge sheet, to me sounds kind of like a no-brainer. And, perhaps the thing at this point is, given that Parliament is not in a position to actually do this, surely we can end up with a scenario where we can get enough of the tech companies that we have sitting down in Stellenbosch to actually get together and build the freaking thing and give it to government and say, here it is, and start using it. And then we take them to court and force them to use it.
Yeah, I think moves have been made along those lines. Once again, it's the old corruption song. Everything, computers get stolen, get sold towards the end of the month.
It's really difficult to steal servers in the cloud. Trust me.
It's not that difficult to screw it up, and if there's a political will to screw it up, it will be done. It's like somebody walking past the belt that feeds coal to the power stations and sticking a screwdriver in the wheel.
So the capacity that you're actually talking about is lack of will. That's what we're missing.
We're missing. Make it happen. An absolute. If they wanted it to happen, if it was important, even if it was only a small pilot project, it could have been done by now. Millions. I'm telling you, I don't recall the amount now, but you would be staggered. Millions have been spent on it every year, and there is no progress whatsoever.
All right, so Glynnis, I mean, you are the shadow minister of justice, and I mean, justice in this country. We hear, these campaigns against gender-based violence. We see the president and Bheki Cele going around and paying lip service to a whole lot of communities
and taking in lots and lots of donations.
Correct.
That president,
right? Taking in big donations,
but failing to warn the victims of Thabo Bester that he was out there. Big service to gender-based violence.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of hypocrisy. But you as the shadow minister of justice, like, justice is such a big, ugly thing to try and fix. Do you, first of all, believe that our judiciary are sufficiently independent? Do you, second of all, believe that we have the means to bring the Justice Department and the various parts of that, the courts themselves, the NPA, the police, their investigative capacity, all of these different parts that need to work in concert to make justice something which the average South African can believe in and rely upon? Is this too big a task? I mean, where would you even begin?
Okay, so I mean, that's largely a political question. So yes, to answer your question, yes, I do believe it's possible. It's a massive job. I don't regard justice as a big ugly thing. I regard justice as an essential tool to making society the kind of place I want to live in. So where guilty people are prosecuted and convicted, and innocent people are acquitted. And that's the kind of system we want to build. And it's entirely possible. It's entirely possible if all the role players work together, consult each other. And you don't have to start, it's a bottom-up process. It's not a top-down process, it's a bottom-up process. You have to provide proper leader. If there's no integrity in the leadership, there's no belief in the leadership, there's no discipline, and it starts there. But if your minister of police thinks it's okay to blow 1.4 million bucks to go in a private jet to pick up two lowlives, then honestly, how do you expect any discipline from the constables and the sergeants and the warrant officers in the police? Why would they have respect for him? Why would they consider their job worthwhile? So, you need to instill a culture of accountability, and a culture of discipline, and enforce it in the police, in the prosecuting authority, in correctional services, and then the system will work. It can work. And it's absolutely doable, and in a much shorter space of time than you think.
So I'm talking of accountability.
Let me tell you, our judiciary is independent, and our judiciary has hauled our backsides out of the fire so many times. It's just not true.
Well, one of the things that I'm asking, and you remind me of this when you talk about the 1.4 million private jet. Are we going to see a commission around why we couldn't get the Guptas back here to stand trial? Because that has been a fiasco of note as well. Are you, in your committee, going to try and hold these guys accountable so we can at least hear what went wrong?
So I've written to the chairperson of my committee to ask that we have a sitting where the NPA and the minister come and brief us about this extradition debacle. I have not yet had a reply, but in his defense, he's been as busy as I am, so I'm sure we'll hear from him quite soon. And I must tell you that extraditions in their very nature are difficult. They're complex, they're intricate. They require a lot of work, a lot of documentation. So no extradition is easy, and no extradition is a foregone conclusion. I don't know if anything was wrong with this application. I've asked for a copy. I have not yet received it. If there was something wrong with it, it's a done deal. There's no point in crying over spilled milk. You can't fix it, and you can't unscramble the egg. The Guptas are gone. They're no longer in the UAE. So what we need to do is if there was something wrong with it, we need to learn from that mistake, fix it, and do better with the next application, wherever they may find themselves, if and when they're arrested. So that's what we can do with this application. If there was nothing wrong with it, if the issue lies with the UAE, well, then that's something that must be dealt with on a diplomatic level, and should be dealt with. And then we'll certainly press for that to be done. But the fact of the matter is that the Guptas have flown the coop. They're no longer in the UAE. So a new red needs to be issued. When they cross an international border again, somebody needs to arrest them, and whatever country that is, we'll need to bring a new application.
So Glynnis, what do you think of the idea that has been touted by a lot of people that we should now go after the political crooks, the people who've benefited from tenders, from crooked donor things, with taking money out of the treasury, with mismanaging money, all of that stuff. And what we should do is set up a separate court and let this court just try these kinds of people. And they have the ability to, there's an amnesty, let's say, for 3 months where people can come forward, own up, mea culpa, pay back the money, whatever they can, and then they won't be prosecuted, or at least they won't go to jail. And the ones who don't own up during that time will go to jail and will be prosecuted by a bunch of independent people who can be funded from outside of money that's controlled by the executive. Is there any chance that that is at all possible in this country, or is that a pipe dream?
Well, our constitution, for starters, doesn't make provision for such a body. And prosecutions are the sole prerogative of the National Prosecuting Authority, and for good reason. You can't have, many dogs fighting over one bone. Having said that, I have a private member's bill that I'm busy preparing to put through Parliament, which proposes just such a body. Not necessarily the kind of body that you envision, but a body to replace the Directorate of Special Operations, or the Scorpions, but outside of the National Prosecuting Authority. So they've now developed this investigating directorate that they've housed inside the NPA, and the minister has now said that he's made it permanent. Well, yippee. The very reason that the Scorpions could be dismantled with such ease was because, and they were dismantled solely because they went after ANC politicians. So the only reason they were dismantled with such ease is because they were housed within the NPA, and it was within the prerogative of government to undo them just as they do them. You know, they tied the shoelace, they can undo it. So this private members bill sets up an independent body outside of the NPA to deal only with the kind of corruption we've seen in state capture. So state capture cases, very high level corruption, that type of matter, to free up the NPA to do all the other matters. Because understand, while there's pressure on them to prosecute all of these very high level people that you talk about, who should absolutely be prosecuted, they should have been prosecuted long ago, they should all have been in jail long ago. While they're doing that, they also have to prosecute the nuts and bolts cases, house breakings, rapes which are serious, murders which are serious. All of those cases still have to be attended to every single day as well.
And you talk about another important part of the work that Parliament does, bills and kind of pushing through legislation that creates the frameworks. Can you just, and I don't think a lot of people understand how that works. So speaking of this bill that you're putting through Parliament, can you talk us through the broad strokes of what it takes to get that bill signed into law?
Well, it's quite a lot of work. You have to conceptualize the bill, and that bill sets up what we would like to refer to as the Anti-Corruption Commission. So it will have powers it will be capacitated and resourced by government, but it will be independent along the lines of the Gender Commission, the Human Rights Commission, the Public Protector's Office, those type of Chapter 9 institutions. It will be resourced by people who can prosecute, people who can investigate, people who have forensic capabilities, accounting, cyber forensics, etc. All of the capabilities that you would need to investigate, prepare, and prosecute these types of cases, and would be resourced by people who have that kind of ability and experience. And there are many of those people around. You could capacitate an office like that outside of the NPA quite easily. But to get that bill off the ground, you have to conceptualize the bill. Then it has to be drafted. Parliament has an office, a department that does that. So you tell them what you have in mind, they draft it. It goes backwards and forwards, and everybody adds and subtracts and hammers it until it's more or less what you have in mind. You then need to put I'm talking about a private members bill, not an ordinary piece of legislation that emanates from, say, the Department of Justice.
Right.
It then has to you have to get the permission of your caucus. So I need the permission of the DA caucus to proceed with such a concept. The bill then eventually gets fashioned. We've just done it now with what we want to call the Cyber Commissioner Bill. We want to set up an office called the Cyber Commissioner's Office, an office that's supposed to envisage to take care of all the cyber needs of South Africa. So to prevent and assist with, when it happens, these type of ransomware attacks we've seen on Justice, on SASA, on whatever. It will subsume the office of the information regulator, because that office hasn't been particularly effective for a variety of reasons. Some of them are good reasons. And so the passage of such a bill is then, once your caucus has approved it, the drafting gets done, you hammer it into shape, you then advertise it in the Government Gazette. The Cyber Commissioner's Bill has already been advertised. You get public comment on it. You then take that public comment and work all the good points into the bill. So you improve the bill with with the public comments, and you fix it yet again, then it will go out, it will be advertised once more, and then it must be submitted to Parliament. So then it goes through whatever committee, that would be our committee, the Justice Committee, goes through the committee, it gets dealt with there, gets hammered a little bit more, and then eventually it will be presented in the National Assembly, either for approval or not. And if they approve it, then it goes to the President to be signed into law, and if they don't approve it, it goes into the dustbin.
2 years later.
Yeah. But it's the Thabo Bester hasn't even, it's taken about a year. Yeah.
Glynnis, are you ever worried because of the kinds of people who you go after in these commissions of inquiry and these parliamentary committees? Are you ever worried about cases that you did years ago at the NPA? I mean, do you need special personal protection? Are you the kind of person who's acutely and I think rightly concerned about your own safety and security?
Not in the least. Coincidentally, I own the 2 most beautiful dogs in the world.
Yes.
And that includes Alice, I'm sorry to say.
My dog, right?
Beautiful dogs
you
in
own
the
her
world.
as well?
And they're each capable of eating more than their body weight in people who bother me. So I have absolutely no fear. No, I fear only 3 things: sharks, locusts, and my orthodontist.
Wow.
Oh, there's a takeaway quote: sharks, orthodontist, and locusts.
Yeah.
So now we have to see you smile so we can see the teeth.
He's not done
Gareth,
yet. We're very, very afraid.
Gareth, I've got one last thing to toss in Glynnis's direction. Glynnis, what do you think of outsourcing our prisons to Rwanda?
This is a constitutional democracy. I firmly believe in human rights.
Glynnis, thanks for your time today. It's great to see you and catch up with you again. And I know you're not particularly bothered by the fact that you were the flavor of the week last week, and you probably won't be next week. But all that incessant grinding that has to be done in Parliament, and in particular in the Justice Shadow portfolio, I wish you luck.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Glynnis. Cheers. There's Glynnis Breytenbach, who is a former advocate, former NPA prosecutor, and now also Shadow Minister of Justice in Parliament for the DA. Sure. All right. Well, I mean, Kanthan is bristling to just bring up a little bit about Russia. I know you are.
No,
I know
actually,
you want to talk about in Sudan, actually.
Yes,
Sudan.
well, Sudan ties into the whole Russian question, and
we only got 8 minutes. So go on.
Well, let's try and talk about Sudan in a couple of minutes. So, Sudan has once again been in a state of war, civil war, over the past couple of days, pretty much
disaster,
since the weekend.
Right.
Not as much of a disaster because there's fighting in the streets, but it's not actually affecting the civilian population yet. But
these are between the 2 people who are vying for power at the moment.
Well, yeah, effectively, but it's one of the interesting scenarios where you have a private militia under the control of one of the factions. And the history of Sudan is that it was basically an uneasy truce that was carved out between various militias. And it just so happens...
Post-Bashir.
Well, actually pre-Bashir, because Bashir enough himself was, heading up
the
leader of a junta.
Yes,
one of
a group of particular militias. But you must understand the kind of chain of events that we have here. So 2019, we have a coup where Bashir is toppled and he is ousted.
And incarcerated. He went to jail, did he not?
Yeah, he went to jail for 2 years. Prior to Bashir being put onto the ICC's watch list, Bashir had reached an agreement with the Russians to allow them to build a naval base on the Sudanese coastline on the Red Sea, which immediately necessitated the need for the West to regime change Bashir. And so he was taken out. Now, at the time, the RSF, the guys who are currently instigate, they are the Janjaweed militia, effectively, yes. And but more importantly, these guys
for a militia.
These guys had been.
And it's
on
by the way, it's 4:20 today, so special mention to the Janjaweed militia. Go on.
So at the point at which this regime change took place a couple of years ago, you had a very close relationship between the RSF, the Janjaweed guys, and the Wagner group of Russia, led by Perozhin. And so the Russian private militia ended up training the Sudanese private militia, except there was then a parting of ways between them 2 years ago. And then last week, you had the RSF then holding meetings with the collective West. And guess what? They then launched the coup.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
Yes. And so, the entire thing that you see happening right now is essentially a quest on the part of the United States to prevent the Russians from setting up a naval base in the Red Sea.
So there's a proxy war.
Know who,
it is a proxy war, yes.
And guess who is very quiet about all of that, even though they have plenty to say about wars in other people's countries, is where is our pandering Naledi Pando here? Very quiet. They could have.
Well, I don't know. That's not necessarily fair to say that Pando's been quiet, because no one's actually put the question to her, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, she doesn't need anyone to put a question to her to put her views out there in the world.
But ask yourself, who actually ends up giving Naledi Pando a platform?
It's the media.
Oh, okay, yeah. And they tend to amplify particular signals. So they amplify signals.
Just want to put it on the record. We have invited her here.
Yes.
Should she wish to come. The invitation stands.
But Durko has still been talking about South Africans who are currently in Sudan, because there's a strong contingent of South Africans who are in Sudan.
So there are two things that we can't let go before we finish the show. Otherwise, people are going to think we're avoiding them. First of all, Fox News had to make the biggest payout by a media organization in history for this issue they've got against the Dominion voting system.
I actually had a Jacob Zuma moment when I saw that number.
798 million. It was an interesting figure.
So let's be clear about this. What Fox News did not want to do was put Rupert Murdoch and all of their hosts on the stand,
yes.
Because it seems to even the untrained eye that they knew that this whole thing by Trump about a what did he call it? A stolen election was nonsense. And we can see from their private messages and so on.
No,
which
I wouldn't
draw.
I wouldn't draw that correlation. You see, what they do not want is for people to be aware that even though Fox News people had a particular sense of what was in fact going down, they were willing to push an alternative narrative, which is not very different to the scenario that we had at Twitter, where you had people who were fully aware of the fact that A, Trump had not violated Twitter's rules of engagement, B, that there was no evidence to directly link him to January 6th, but they still used the opportunity to ban him from Twitter in any case. And really what this is doing, the paying of the 798 million, is to prevent a scenario where people just get hauled before the courts and have to testify.
It's a lot of money, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, Fox must have really...
It's a lot of money to protect people from telling the truth.
That's a lot of...
It's a lot of money from our perspective, but, from the point of view of...
I think they've got 4 billion in liquid capital, and to throw away 700 and something million, you have to be pretty guilty.
And now they are facing
so other...
But now what this also does is it opens them up to other individuals who have similar claims.
Correct.
And it's already in the news.
and it opens up other media organizations to the same thing. It's created a precedent. Okay.
Well, but the other things that we're not talking about, okay, we're not talking about the fact that we've now had the Guantanamo documents that show that a couple of the hijackers of 9/11 were CIA assets.
Right.
Okay. Nobody's talking about that. No one's talking about the 400 million that was revealed that has been siphoned off by Zelensky and
anything to say about either of those
and his colleagues? No, I think it's just important that people are aware and they go.
People have got to know.
They need to go looking for the information, to recognize that these guys are fundamentally, enriching themselves at the expense of sending people to die at the front lines of the battlefield. No one's talking about the fact that the Saudis have effectively cut ties with the US and that they've built relationships now with China and with Russia. And for the first time, you've had Russian warships docking at Saudi Arabian ports. There's a lot going on. There's a range.
Kuningi, right?
Listen, the Americans need their own word for Kuningi. Here in South Africa, we can give them some lessons on how to deal with, in a 24-hour news cycle, with all of the crap that's flying thick and fast. I mean, every single one of these things is really shifting at breakneck speed.
Hearing all of this news with only a minute to go, I want to know if I can book a place on that rocket of Elon's so I can get the hell off this planet, because it seems to me...
Where's the rocket going?
I don't mind.
Why would you want to be in any other country? We have perfect lives out here. You, Phumi and me, what are we short for?
When last you fill up your car, perfect lives. It's expensive as hell out there. Are you joking?
It is expensive as hell, but at the same time, I am able to fill up my car.
All right.
And so are you, Phumi.
All right. Okay, well,
we shouldn't grumble so much.
This
is the greatest country in the world.
I don't agree. I do disagree normally. I think it's just there are a lot of reasons why we should keep our eyes open, which is why you bring up these stories right at the end of the show.
You can have sex. You can have sex in the daytime on a domestic flight.
On a flight to Durban.
Exactly. Okay.
Jeez, we didn't even touch on that. Wow.
My country, the sweet land
alive
of
with possibilities.
Alive, thank you.
Alive with possibilities.
Yeah.
What a great
where
line.
else in the world can you do this?
How big is that?
A good
seat?
story to tell.
A good story to tell. Thank you.
That's what I was just like. How big is this plane seat that these people were in? But anyway.
All right. Happy 420, everybody. And good luck with the launch today of this rocket. Let's see if it can get human intelligence to other planets, because God knows we haven't got any left.